Welcome everyone! This video of Learn English at Home 79 channel outlines a comprehensive guide for English language acquisition, emphasizing various practical strategies to foster proficiency. It highlights the importance of consistent engagement through listening, speaking, reading, and writing, suggesting activities like listening to stories and music, practicing conversation, and reading simple books. The content also stresses the value of patience, positive mindset, and continuous self-improvement, encouraging learners to embrace mistakes, set achievable goals, and utilize diverse resources such as dictionaries, flashcards, and online tools. Ultimately, the guide frames language learning as an enjoyable and ongoing adventure, advocating for immersion, creativity, and self-compassion throughout the journey. Are you ready? Let's get started!
Have you ever wished you could just, download a new skill, like directly into your brain?
Oh, definitely. Like Neo learning Kung Fu in the Matrix.
Exactly. Or maybe you're, standing at the bottom of a big challenge, like learning a new language, and you just wish you could skip all the messy bits and just be fluent already.
That feeling is so common. That desire to just know something, to feel informed without getting totally bogged down in the process.
Well, today we're diving deep into exactly that. We're looking at mastering the art of learning English. But here's the really interesting part. While English is our focus today, the strategies we're going to unpack. They're surprisingly simple, really powerful, and honestly, they apply to learning pretty much anything.
That's the goal, right? To take this potentially daunting task, language learning, and turn it into something that's not just effective, but actually enjoyable, more of an adventure than a chore.
Couldn't have said it better. And our guide for this adventure is a fantastic source. It's excerpts from a YouTube video transcript. It's called Talk to People in English Graded Reader, Improve Your English, Learn English Level 1. From the channel Learn English with Listening.
And it's great because it's not, super academic or theoretical. It feels very grounded in real experience.
Exactly. Practical tips shared in a really accessible way.
So our mission today really is to dig into those tips.
Yeah.
We want to pull out the core wisdom, understand the why behind the advice, not just the what.
And crucially, figure out how you, our listeners, can take these insights and apply them directly to your own learning journey, whatever that might be, and wherever you're starting from.
Yeah, this isn't just about English. It's about unlocking more effective ways to learn, period.
Okay, so when it comes down to learning, especially something like a language, our source really seems to build everything on 4 fundamental pillars. There are 2 about taking information in, and 2 about getting it back out. Let's start with the input side. First up, listening. The source is really clear on this. It calls listening very important, like the absolute foundation.
Foundational is the right word.
And it shares this really relatable story. Someone felt genuinely scared about English as a kid. You know that feeling, right? That sort of knot in your stomach when something feels huge and new.
Oh, yeah. Overwhelming.
Totally.
Yeah.
But then they started this simple habit, just listening to stories in English every single day. And the amazing thing, slowly, gradually, understanding started to dawn. The words got clearer, the fear just faded. It sounds almost like magic, but I'm guessing there's something more scientific going on.
There absolutely is. It's not magic, but it is fascinating. What's happening is that consistent listening is priming your brain. It's like laying the groundwork for language acquisition. You're building this natural feel for the rhythm, the sounds, the intonation before you even try to speak much.
So it's subconscious learning almost.
In a way, yes. It connects directly to this idea of comprehensible input. The key isn't just hearing sounds. It's hearing language you can understand, even if it's just partially. The story, the context, maybe pictures, if it's a video, they all help you piece it together.
Okay, so it's not just noise, it's meaning making.
Exactly. And while you're listening, Your brain is doing incredible work behind the scenes. It's picking up new words, sure, but it's also figuring out how sentences work, how words fit together, the natural flow. It's like you're filling this huge invisible library in your head.
A library you can draw on later.
Precisely. That's why the source stresses listening every day. Stories, songs, news, whatever works for you. That consistency allows those patterns to sink in, and it really does make that initial fear start to shrink. You're letting your brain map the language without consciously forcing it.
Okay, so listening is crucial input. But then there's the other side of the coin, getting the language out. Our source really emphasizes speaking, saying that classic phrase, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
And it stresses speaking English every single day. What's your take on that, especially the part about doing it daily, even if you're making mistakes? How does that actually speed things up?
Well, that's where the real acceleration happens, I think. The every day, even with mistakes part is critical. It's not just about banging your head against a wall, repeating things. It's about tackling that fear, that deep-seated fear of sounding silly or getting it wrong.
The perfectionism trap.
Exactly. The source frames mistakes not as failures, but as tools for learning. And that is such a game changer. Psychologically, that fear of judgment is probably one of the biggest hurdles people face. It's that fixed mindset whispering, don't try if you might mess up.
Right. So how does pushing past that help?
Because when you consistently push past it, when you adopt more of a growth mindset, seeing errors as essential feedback, you're not just practicing words, you're building mental resilience. Each mistake becomes an active learning prompt.
Like a little flag saying, hey, look at this.
Precisely. It tells your brain, okay, that didn't quite work, let's adjust. It forces you to pull information out, try to use it, and then refine it based on the outcome. That consistent active output, even if it's messy and imperfect, is what really cements the learning and pushes you towards actual fluency. It's the courage to be imperfect that unlocks the progress.
Okay, so we've got listening and speaking. The source also gives a lot of weight to reading, calling it a good way to learn. And there's that lovely little story about someone reading a simple book about a lost cat with pictures and just loving it and learning loads of new words that way. What makes reading so effective, especially maybe for someone who's just starting out?
Reading is incredibly powerful, especially at the beginning, because it helps you build vocabulary and understand grammar implicitly. Without necessarily studying rules, this connects to the idea of extensive reading.
Extensive reading, meaning reading a lot.
Yeah, reading widely, but the focus is on general understanding and enjoyment, not on stopping to look up every single word you don't know. When you read a story, especially one with pictures like in the anecdote, those visuals give you so much context. They're like little clues.
Scaffolding, maybe?
That's a perfect word for it. Scaffolding. They help you guess the meaning of unfamiliar words. And the beauty is you're absorbing the language more naturally, almost without realizing it. Your brain starts picking up patterns, how sentences are built, how words are typically used, just through seeing them again and again in meaningful situations.
So it's less intimidating than, say, memorizing grammar charts.
Much less. It feels more like discovery. The more you read things you actually find interesting, the more exposure you get, and the more those natural English patterns just sort of sink in. It bolsters everything, your understanding, your vocabulary, eventually even your speaking and writing.
All right, let's move to the last of the core four, writing. The source says writing is also so important, and I guess it feels important because it makes you use what you know, right? You have to actively put things together. How does writing really push the learning process forward, maybe in ways the other skills don't?
You've hit on a key aspect. Active construction. Writing isn't passive like listening, or sometimes reading can be. It forces you to take the words and grammar rules floating around in your head and actively build something with them. It's pure active recall.
Pulling it out of that mental library we talked about.
Exactly. You have to retrieve the information, organize it, make choices about word order and vocabulary. This whole process strengthens the neural pathways associated with that language, making the memories much more solid.
Makes sense.
And the source's story about keeping a small notebook for daily writing, just short things about their day, friends, dreams, that's a perfect example. They mention making mistakes, but learning from them. Writing gives you the safe space to experiment.
Lower stakes than speaking, maybe?
Often, yes. You can pause, think, look things up, but crucially, you immediately see where your gaps are. How do I say that again? Or is that the right preposition? It's a powerful diagnostic tool for yourself. And, importantly, every time you manage to write a sentence, even a simple one, that makes sense, that's a little win. It builds confidence, reinforcing that belief that, yes, you can do this. #tag2, immersive strategies in media engagement.
Okay, so we have those foundational for listening, speaking, reading, writing. But the source goes further, looking at how to make learning more dynamic, more engaging, by really immersing yourself and using different kinds of media. #Shay, surrounding yourself with English. Now, for a lot of us, moving to an English-speaking country just isn't practical. But the source talks about trying to be around English as much as you can. Simple things like listening to English music, watching movies in English, even just noticing English signs, or get this, changing your phone language to English. How effective is that kind of almost background exposure?
It's surprisingly effective. This is all about creating what language learning experts sometimes call an English bubble, right where you are. You don't need a passport. You just need intention.
An English bubble. I like that.
Yeah. It's about building this environment where English is just around.
Yeah.
Constantly. The anecdote about changing the phone language is perfect. The speaker says it was hard at first, right? It makes sense. But then, with every tap, every notification, a little bit of learning happens.
So it's not always about dedicated study time.
Not at all. It's about frequency of exposure. You're soaking in the language almost by osmosis. Your brain is subconsciously picking up patterns, getting used to the sounds, seeing words used in everyday contexts, whether it's music playing, a show on in the background with subtitles, or just reading ingredients on a food package. This constant ambient presence makes English feel less like a foreign subject and more like a normal part of your environment.
Normalizes it.
Exactly. It lowers the mental barrier, makes it feel more familiar and less intimidating over time. It's a really clever, low-effort way to boost your learning. #HagJagToBe, leveraging visuals and interactive media.
Building on that idea of media, the source specifically recommends watching English videos, calls it fun and very helpful. It also mentions using visual aids later on, and even gamifying learning by playing games in English. What's going on in the brain when we combine these different senses, sight, sound, interaction? Why does that seem to make learning stick better?
It's all about multisensory learning. When you engage multiple senses, you activate different parts of your brain simultaneously. This creates richer, more interconnected memory pathways. So with a video, you're not just hearing words.
You're seeing faces, actions.
Right. You see the context, the body language, the expressions. All of that provides extra clues to meaning, making comprehension much easier. That story about watching a funny cartoon dog and learning new words while laughing, that's it in action. The enjoyment, the visuals, the sound, they all work together.
And the gamification part, making it feel like a game.
Oh, that's brilliant. When learning feels like play, maybe through an app with points or a word puzzle or a quiz game, your brain releases dopamine. That's the feel-good neurotransmitter linked to reward and motivation.
So you literally enjoy learning more.
Yes. And that enjoyment makes you want to do it more, reduces how effortful it feels, and actually improves memory retention. It's like tricking your brain into working hard by making it fun. Visual aids like pictures or charts do something similar. They make abstract ideas concrete, helping visual learners especially, and just generally make information more engaging and easier to recall. It's about making learning active and appealing, not just a passive chore. #tag, the power of real-world interaction.
The source really pushes for actual interaction, too. It says talking to people is a good way to learn, mentions listening to different accents and even learning with others. What does this emphasis on interaction signal for, actually using the language in the real world? How does it move you beyond just studying?
This is absolutely vital. This is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. Talking to people is the ultimate output practice. It forces you to take all that input, the listening, the reading, and actually use it in real time, under pressure, however slight.
Like the anecdote about the friend who spoke English well.
Exactly. Talking every day, getting corrected, that immediate feedback loop is priceless. It's one thing to think you know how to say something, but trying it out and getting instant feedback, positive or corrective, is how you really refine your skills. And as the source notes, even if you don't have native speakers around, finding other learners online to practice with is hugely beneficial.
What about the different accents point?
That's crucial for real-world comprehension. English isn't monolithic. It's spoken with countless accents globally. Deliberately exposing yourself to various accents, UK, US, Australian, Indian, Nigerian, etc., builds what you might call auditory flexibility. It trains your ear to understand English as it's actually spoken around the world.
And learning with others.
That adds another layer. Peer teaching, explaining something to someone else, is one of the best ways to solidify your own understanding. Plus, it provides accountability, shared motivation, and combats the isolation that can creep in when you're studying alone. All these interactive elements push you beyond passive knowledge into active, confident communication.
Okay, let's shift focus a bit. Because learning isn't just about what you do, the techniques you use. It seems like it's hugely influenced by your mindset, your attitude, your internal approach. And the source has some really powerful things to say about this. First off, patience. The source is very direct. Learning a new language takes time. It does not happen in one day. It frames it clearly as a marathon, not a sprint.
Why is patience so important in this context? And how do you, keep going during those inevitable times when it feels like you're stuck, like the source mentions?
Patience is probably the single most critical non-technical skill for language learning. It speaks directly to the reality of the learning curve, which, let's be honest, is never a smooth, steady climb upwards.
More like hills and plateaus. Exactly. There will be frustrating plateaus, periods where you're putting in the effort, studying every day, but it just feels like nothing's changing. You're not getting noticeably better. The source's anecdote about feeling sad sometimes, not understanding, but crucially, not giving up and then slowly improving, that captures it perfectly.
So you have to trust the process even when you can't see immediate results.
You absolutely have to. Mastery is built brick by brick, day by day. It's about sustained effort over time. You have to internalize that every small step does count, even if it doesn't feel significant in the moment.
Yeah.
Your brain is still working, processing, consolidating, even on those plateau days. The key is perseverance. Just keep showing up, keep putting one foot in front of the other, and trust that the progress is happening, even if it's under the surface.
We touched on this before, but it's worth revisiting because the source brings it up again even more forcefully. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. It says mistakes are part of learning. And I love this phrase, they are your best teachers. It stresses that everyone makes them, so the important thing is to learn from them, not let them paralyze you. How does making a mistake actually teach you something effectively?
It's such a vital point to really absorb. Mistakes aren't just errors to be avoided. They are incredibly valuable pieces of information. They're diagnostic. They pinpoint exactly where your current understanding or skill is falling short.
So they show you where to focus.
Precisely. When you make a mistake, say, use the wrong word or tense and you realize it, or someone corrects you, your brain registers a mismatch. There's a gap between what you intended and what came out. That gap, that little moment of cognitive dissonance, is a powerful trigger for learning.
Like a little alarm bell going off.
Kind of. Think about science. A scientist runs an experiment, and it doesn't produce the expected result. Is the scientist a failure? No. The result is data. It tells them something crucial about their hypothesis or method. Mistakes in language learning are the same. They're data about your current internal grammar rules or vocabulary map. If you're too scared to make them, you'll just stick to the few things you know perfectly and you'll never stretch, never grow.
You stay in the comfort zone.
Exactly. And real learning happens just outside that zone. The fear of making a mistake often holds people back far more than the mistakes themselves ever could. Every error is proof you're trying, you're engaging, and you're giving your brain the raw material it needs to refine itself. #CC. Cultivating positivity and enjoyment.
The source also talks a lot about the feeling of learning. It frames English learning as a journey that should be enjoyed. It emphasizes staying positive, later mentions confidence in learning, and even uses metaphors like learning being an adventure. How does injecting enjoyment and positivity actually affect the mechanics of learning and remembering? Is there a brain science link there?
Oh, absolutely. There's a very strong connection between positive emotions and cognitive functions like memory and learning. When you're genuinely interested in something, when you're having fun, when you feel confident, your brain is literally more receptive.
Oh, so?
Positive emotions like curiosity, enthusiasm, which the source really encourages, act as powerful intrinsic motivators. They trigger the release of neurotransmitters like dopamine in the brain's reward pathways. This doesn't just make learning feel good, it actually helps encode memories more strongly. It makes you more likely to persist.
So enjoying the process actually makes the process work better.
Exactly. Look at the speaker's own stories. They enjoyed every step, loved discovering new words, loved understanding stories. That enjoyment wasn't just a side effect, it was fuel. It made the learning feel less like work and probably accelerated it. Thinking of it as an adventure, looking for treasures, new words or insights, that reframing transforms the whole experience.
And the confidence part, believing you can do it.
That's huge. It's what psychologists call self-efficacy. Believing in your own ability to learn and succeed makes you more resilient when you hit those inevitable challenges. You're more likely to try different strategies, seek help, and keep going. Positivity and enjoyment aren't just fluffy extras. They are core components of effective, sustainable learning. #D. Celebrating progress and setting rewards.
Tied into that positive outlook, the source repeatedly advises celebrating progress. Phrases like celebrate your progress, find joy in small successes, and set rewards for yourself come up quite a bit. It also tells us, importantly, don't compare yourself to others. Why is this focus on acknowledging your own achievements, even small ones, so important for keeping motivation high over the long haul?
It's all about building and maintaining a positive reinforcement cycle. Think about it. Learning a language is a long journey with distant goals. If you only wait for the big finish line total fluency to feel good, you'll likely burn out or get discouraged long before you get there.
Right, you need milestones along the way.
Precisely. When you consciously stop to acknowledge and celebrate the small wins, understanding a conversation snippet, using a new word correctly, finishing a chapter in a book, you give your brain a little hit of that rewarding dopamine we talked about. It reinforces the behavior, learning, and makes you want to continue. These micro victories are tangible proof that you are making progress, which builds confidence and combats feelings of stagnation.
And the don't compare advice.
That's incredibly important for protecting that positive mindset. Everyone learns differently at different speeds with different strengths and weaknesses. Constantly looking sideways at how quickly someone else seems to be learning is a recipe for feeling inadequate. The only fair comparison is you today versus you yesterday or last week. Focusing on your own journey, your own effort, and rewarding your progress cultivates self-compassion and keeps the motivation internal and robust. Whether it's treating yourself to a coffee or just taking a moment to feel proud, those rewards make the effort feel worthwhile and sustainable. #Tag2ICV. Smart practices in self-management.
Okay, so mindset is clearly huge. But beyond attitude, our deep dive also reveals a bunch of really practical tools, techniques, and maybe even self-management strategies that can seriously boost your learning efficiency and help you stay on course. The source mentions some tools that might sound a bit traditional, but it frames them as really valuable. A dictionary is called your friend, flashcards are a great way to learn new words, and taking notes is recommended whenever you learn something new. How do these seemingly simple tools actually contribute to deeper learning?
They might seem old school, but their power lies in how they facilitate active engagement with the language, rather than just passive exposure. Take the dictionary. The source doesn't just say look up words, it mentions the speaker carrying one and trying to use the new words found. A good dictionary gives you pronunciation, different meanings, example sentences, its context.
So it's more than just a translation.
Much more. And flashcards, they're not just for looking at. They are perfect tools for active recall, forcing your brain to retrieve the answer before flipping the card. And they lend themselves beautifully to spaced repetition, reviewing words at increasing intervals, right when you're about to forget them. This is scientifically proven to be way more effective for long-term memory than just cramming.
Okay, active recall and spaced repetition. Got it. And notes.
Note-taking isn't just about having a record. The act of writing something down, summarizing, rephrasing in your own words, organizing the information helps you process it more deeply. It forces you to engage mentally. And yes, then you have your own personalized reference library to review later, reinforcing the learning. So these tools aren't passive, they're catalysts for active mental processing.
Now, the source suggests some things that feel a bit more advanced, maybe, like trying to think in English, even if it's hard at first, and really encouraging us. Don't be afraid to make your own sentences with new words. What's the cognitive advantage of pushing yourself to process the language internally like this?
These are definitely steps towards higher fluency, and the cognitive benefits are significant. Trying to think in English is fundamentally about reducing your reliance on translation. Mental translation thinking in your native language and then converting adds a huge amount of cognitive load. It slows you down.
It's like an extra step every time.
Exactly. When you start practicing thinking directly in English, even for simple things initially, you begin to bypass that step. Your brain learns to access English concepts and structures directly. The speaker's experience mirrors this perfectly, starting with translation, but gradually finding it easier to think in English. It makes processing faster, more automatic, more fluent.
And making your own sentences, why not just memorize example sentences?
Memorizing examples is okay, but crafting your own sentences is far more powerful. It takes a new word from being an isolated piece of data to be integrated into your active vocabulary. When you make your own sentence, even a funny or silly one, as the source says you're experimenting, you're testing its grammatical behavior, its common partners, collocations, its nuances, its creative construction.
You're playing with the language.
Yes, and that playfulness helps solidify understanding and memory, much better than just passively absorbing someone else's sentence. It makes the language feel like yours.
Our source also keeps coming back to structure. Things like setting goals, regularly reviewing what you've learned, and staying organized. It sounds like the foundations of a disciplined approach. How do these elements work together to make learning more effective, less chaotic?
They really form a powerful trio for creating a solid learning framework. Let's break it down. Setting goals, as the source says, helps you stay focused and gives you something to work towards. We often talk about SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. So instead of a vague goal like learn English, you set smaller targets. Learn 10 new food words this week, or read one short article every day.
Makes it feel less overwhelming.
Exactly. It breaks the huge task down into manageable chunks. The speaker, mentioning feeling happy reaching small goals, highlights this motivational aspect. Then there's reviewing. This isn't just glancing over old notes. Effective review involves challenging your memory. Things like active recall, quizzing yourself, and spaced repetition, which we mention with flashcards. It combats the natural forgetting curve and ensures knowledge moves into long-term memory.
And organization ties it all together.
Right. Staying organized, keeping notes together, having lists, maybe a study schedule reduces mental clutter. You waste less time figuring out what to study or where your materials are, and more time actually learning. This combination, clear goals for direction, regular review for retention, and organization for efficiency, creates a system that supports consistent, measurable progress.
Now, this next set of advice feels incredibly humane and wise, especially for a long journey. The source stresses be consistent a little bit every day. But it also says don't rush, take your time, and this is key, it's okay to take breaks. It even says don't be afraid to start over if you need to. This sounds like the perfect recipe for avoiding burnout. What's the deep wisdom here for keeping going long term?
This is all about sustainable learning. It recognizes that language acquisition is, as we said, a marathon. The advice to be consistent is paramount. Doing something every day, even if it's just for 15-20 minutes, builds momentum and reinforces habits far better than heroic multi-hour study sessions once a week that leave you exhausted. Consistency truly is key. It creates a compounding effect over time.
Small steps add up.
They really do. But equally important is the permission to not rush and to take breaks. Pushing yourself too hard, especially when you're tired or frustrated, is counterproductive. Your brain doesn't learn well under stress. Stepping away, doing something enjoyable, and coming back refreshed allows for consolidation and prevents burnout. It's strategic rest.
And the starting over point. That sounds scary.
It can feel like backtracking, but it's actually very wise. Sometimes you hit a wall because the foundation isn't quite solid enough. Recognizing that and being willing to go back and review basics, to start over on a particular topic if needed, isn't failure. It's ensuring you build on solid ground. It acknowledges that learning isn't always linear. This whole package, consistency, pacing, breaks, and strategic review, is about creating a learning rhythm you can maintain healthily for the long haul. #V. Connecting English to your world.
Okay, for our final section, let's look at how to really weave English into the fabric of your life, moving beyond just study sessions and making it a living, breathing part of your world. This seems crucial for reaching real fluency. The source makes a really interesting point. Language and culture are connected. It suggests learning about English culture, holidays, traditions, food, helps you understand the language better. It also advises connecting what you learn to your life and using English in lots of different ways. How does broadening the scope like this, beyond just words and grammar, actually deepen the learning?
It deepens it immensely because language doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's a product of culture. And it reflects how people see the world, what they value, their shared history. Understanding some of the cultural context can unlock the meaning behind idioms, politeness conventions, humor, and just why people say things the way they do.
So knowing about Thanksgiving helps understand certain phrases or references.
Exactly. Or understanding British understatement or Australian slang. It makes the language richer, more nuanced. As the speaker found, learning about culture made the whole process more interesting, and connecting it to your own life, that's about relevance. When you learn the word sunny and then immediately think about how to use it to describe your weather today, you're making a personal link.
It makes it stick.
Precisely. Information that's relevant and personal is processed more deeply and remembered better. And the advice to use English in different ways, speaking, writing, reading, listening, maybe even singing or acting as the source suggests, later ensures you're developing well-rounded competence. Each skill reinforces the others. It's about taking English off the page and making it a versatile tool you can use authentically in your world. #OutOutro.
Wow. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground today. It feels like we've really unpacked a whole philosophy of learning, using English as our example. From those core skills, listening, speaking, reading, writing, to the absolutely critical role of mindset, patience, positivity, embracing mistakes.
And all the practical strategies, too, using media, setting goals, taking breaks, connecting it to culture in your own life.
Yeah.
It really paints a picture of learning as this multifaceted, dynamic process.
Absolutely. It's not just one thing. It's a whole ecosystem of habits and attitudes. And it really drives home that learning, whether it's English or anything else, isn't just a task to tick off a list. It's a journey.
And speaking of journeys, our source had that beautiful garden analogy towards the end. Do you remember it?
I do. It was lovely. Something about planting seeds.
Yeah. Learning English is like planting a garden. Every word you learn is like a seed, and every sentence you form is like a blooming flower. With patience, care, and dedication, your garden will grow beautifully, full of vibrant colors and sweet scents.
That's such a great way to think about it.
It really is. So maybe the question for you listening is, what kind of garden are you cultivating? How are you tending to it? How will you water your own learning garden with, curiosity, enthusiasm, and maybe just a bit of self-compassion?
That leads perfectly to the final thought, perhaps.
What single seed will you plant? Or maybe what part of your garden will you decide to tend to starting today? Just one small action.
That's a powerful takeaway. Remember, everyone, the real beauty in learning often lies not just in reaching some final destination, but in actually enjoying the process, enjoying the journey itself. Every little step forward is progress.
Celebrate those steps.
Absolutely. Celebrate each moment, stay curious, and don't lose sight of the joy that can be found in learning something new. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.